Thomas Gore Browne was appointed Governor of New Zealand in September 1855. He was Governor of New Zealand until the 3rd of October 1861. He was therefore in office for the period leading up to the Waikato Wars. George Grey was the Governor of New Zealand both before and after Gore Browne. Grey's first term was from November 1845 to January 1854. He then went to South Africa but returned to replace Gore Browne in December 1861 and remained Governor until February 1868. Gore Browne played a major role in the leading events up to the Waikato Wars. Grey was Governor when the wars were fought. It is interesting to question who has the biggest role in the events that were the Waikato Wars. The Waikato Wars were an invasion of the Waikato district, supplied, organised and directed from Auckland. At that time, Waikato was a major centre of Māori population with a number of large settlements, mostly on the Waikato River. The river was a major transport route and was mostly controlled by Māori. Waikato was also the centre of the Māori kingitanga movement, which was promoting the idea of a Māori sovereign, a concept which made the colonial government uncomfortable because they feared it might mean that Māori were rejecting colonial sovereignty. The first military battle of the Waikato Wars was made possible when Grey ordered the building of the Great South Road in 1862. This allowed the transport of men and supplies into the region. The battles were at October 1863, Medi, November 1863, Rangireire, December 1863, Nahuwaria, Kingitanga capital January 1864, Patarangi, February 1864, Rangiowhia, April 1864, Araucau. The battles are generally similar, with Māori establishing a defensive position in a fort and that position being invaded by colonial troops, who had superior numbers and weapon technology. The invaders could have stopped at any time, but continued to push south out of Auckland. They drove Māori from the Waikato into what is now the King Country and confiscated lands that became available to settlers. But the events that caused the Waikato War had been brewing for some years, in some ways, starting with the Treaty of Waitangi. Thomas Gore Browne failed to deal with the political pressures he was under and set the scene for war. He was faced with a rising settler population and a falling Māori population. He was concerned for Māori welfare, but was keen to please the settlers. He was faced with ministers who were keen to get land by any means. At the same time, more Māori were becoming opposed to land sales. The Māori King movement was uniting Māori and was opposed to land sales. Many settlers saw the King movement as blocking access to land and pressured the government to deal with it. This is all boiled over in the Waitara Purchase in late 1859. Gore Browne tried to push through the purchase of a block of land which had been offered by one Māori leader to Tera, even though the sale was opposed by a more senior Māori leader, Wiremu Kingi. War broke out in Taranaki in 1860 and continued until 1861, when a truce was pulled together that left both sides unhappy. Gore Browne's policy was dissatisfied and threatened settlers and dissatisfied and organised Māori, who were becoming more united under the King movement and more suspicious of the Crown's intentions. This is the environment Grey came into. He pushed through the war in the Waikato quickly. He built a road to the Waikato in preparation, he built up troop numbers, he convinced London that Māori may invade Auckland. Generally, he put together a strategy that gave him the resources and reasons to push ahead with the war in the Waikato. He gave Māori deadlines to fall into line, but there is evidence that he was not interested in the Māori response. It could be argued that he could see which way the local politics were going, and he knew that he had to deliver land, stop wars, and show London that he was in control. There was only one way to do this. By the time the war started, it is clear it was his aim to crush Māori in the Waikato. He threatened to confiscate land, and he did, as soon as the outcome of the conflict was clear. These land confiscations would play a major ongoing role in Māori-Pākehā relations in New Zealand and were the subject of Māori claims and settlements through to the 1990s. So which man caused the wars? Maybe both, but in different ways. Gore Browne was ineffective and failed to deliver a solution to the pressures he was under. He did not deliver for settlers, and he aroused Māori mistrust. This was a hopeless combination. Grey saw the pressures, made a decision, and pushed for a strategy using superior military force. Maybe he could have used his political skills and mana with Māori to avoid war. His actions suggest he fought not.